The important advice Caitlin Clark received after saying goodbye to the season due to injury, which has been crucial for the Indiana Fever. The Indiana Fever star found new purpose from the sidelines. When Caitlin Clark's season was cut short by injury, it would have been easy for her to disappear from the spotlight and focus solely on recovery. Instead, the 23-year-old Indiana Fever guard turned a painful break into a new beginning thanks to a simple but powerful message: don't lose your joy. After dominating headlines for her historic college career at Iowa and entering the pros amid immense expectations, Clark's year didn't unfold the way she envisioned. 13 games in, her body forced her to slow down. But instead of retreating, she embraced a different role, one that allowed her to grow as a leader, teammate, and person. Following advice from veteran teammate Sydney Colson, Clark began to see her time away from the court not as a pause, but as an opportunity. Her fun side, I think that was the most important part, to see her being jovial and lighthearted, Colson said. Having fun with her teammates, I don't think was a side that people saw a lot last season. And so I would just be telling her, more of that. It was advice that stuck. Rather than dwell on frustration, Clark leaned into connection. She became a fixture on the Fever bench, always engaged, often smiling, and sometimes even laughing at herself. A lighter side of Caitlin Clark takes the spotlight. Moments like that have helped reshape the image of a player who, for years, was seen primarily through the lens of competition and records. The injury gave her space to breathe and reflect, revealing a more playful, self-assured side. Clark's active presence on the sidelines also strengthened her bond with head coach Stephanie White. She observed the flow of games, absorbed tactical discussions, and used that knowledge to grow her understanding of leadership from a different angle. While she couldn't contribute points, she contributed perspective, something her teammates noticed immediately. When Caitlin Clark took the court for the Indiana Fever, she carried the weight of expectations larger than any rookie in recent WNBA history. From packed arenas to national TV coverage, her presence brought a new wave of energy to women's basketball. But the fairy tale rookie season met a harsh interruption, an injury that forced her to say goodbye to the court before she was ready. It wasn't just a physical setback. For someone as competitive and driven as Caitlin, the sudden pause hit hard. The silence of recovery replaced the roar of the crowd, and her sneakers, once a blur across the hardwood, now sat unused beside her rehab mat. Yet, in that quiet space, far from the spotlight, came a moment that would change not only her mindset but also the direction of the Indiana Fever as a team. The advice that changed everything. It came from a veteran, someone who had seen the highs and lows of a WNBA career and understood the fragility of athletic dreams. The advice wasn't wrapped in grand speeches or motivational cliches. It was simple, almost understated. Don't rush your return. Lead differently while you heal. At first, Caitlin didn't fully grasp the weight of those words. She wanted to be back. She wanted to prove she could carry the Fever. But as the days passed, that advice began to sink in. Leadership wasn't only about scoring points or making highlight reel assists. It was also about resilience, patience, and the quiet strength to uplift others when you couldn't lift yourself onto the court. From player to presence. During her recovery, Caitlin didn't disappear. Instead, she became a constant in the Fever locker room, sitting beside teammates, watching film, and offering insights from the sidelines. She studied every play with the sharp eye of someone who wasn't just learning to recover, but learning to lead in a new way. Teammates later said her presence felt different. She wasn't loud or overbearing, but her focus was contagious. She started encouraging younger players, giving them tips she once received herself. When games got tough, she became the calm in the chaos, a reminder that the team's strength wasn't just in its star player, but in its unity. Sophie Cunningham, the fiery veteran guard who had been through her own share of injuries, became one of Clark's biggest supporters during this period. "I told her it's okay to slow down," Cunningham said. "Sometimes, your biggest growth happens when you're forced to stand still." And Clark listened, turning pain into purpose. The rehab process was grueling, hours of repetitive exercises, endless physical therapy, and mental battles against frustration. But Caitlin began treating it like training for her mind as much as her body. She kept a journal, something she rarely did before. Each day, she wrote about small victories, hitting a new range of motion, standing a little longer without pain, watching a teammate excel in practice. These notes became her quiet form of motivation, a reminder that even in stillness, she was moving forward. The Fever's coaching staff noticed a shift. Clark wasn't just recovering, she was evolving. She began watching game footage not as a player, but as a strategist. She noticed defensive gaps, offensive tendencies, and how to better connect with teammates on the floor. Her game IQ sharpened even without playing a single minute. The ripple effect on the Fever. When one of the league's brightest stars goes down, a team can crumble under the weight of that loss. But for the Fever, something different happened. Clark's energy, even from the bench, became a fuel source. Her leadership by example encouraged players like Nalissa Smith and Aaliyah Boston to step up with confidence. Smith found her scoring rhythm again. Boston became an even more dominant force in the paint. And Sophie Cunningham, always the emotional spark, often credited Caitlin's composure as a grounding influence. Caitlin showed us that leadership doesn't always mean being on the floor, Boston said in an interview. She kept us connected, motivated, and believing in what we were building. By the end of the season, even though Clark couldn't play, her fingerprints were everywhere, in the team's improved chemistry, in the young players' confidence, and in the culture of accountability and support that had taken root inside the Fever locker room. A new kind of strength. In sports, injuries often expose weakness, but for Caitlin, it revealed something deeper. It showed her what kind of player she truly wanted to be. Not just a scorer or a star, but a complete leader, one who could influence a team with her heart as much as her hands. She began to see the bigger picture. Her career wasn't defined by one season, one injury, or one setback. It was about the foundation she was laying for the years to come. The advice she'd received, to lead differently, had become her mantra. When she finally returned to light shooting drills, the entire team gathered to watch. It wasn't about her hitting threes again. It was about what she represented: resilience, growth, and quiet strength. The gym erupted in cheers as she sank her first jumper. It wasn't just a shot. It was a message. She was back and better than before. The Fever's turning point. Behind the scenes, Indiana had transformed. The once young, uncertain squad had matured into a cohesive unit. Players communicated better, trusted each other more, and carried a belief that transcended any single player's presence on the court.